don't shy away from holding the government to account for their targets.
Madam Speaker.
I call the Honourable Tracey Martin.
Kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to start... Speaker, beg your pardon. Sorry, I've just flown in. I've been down in Napier this morning, and I wanted to make sure that I was back here for the...
Suffering from jet lag.
Yes, well, it's only Napier, but but it is almost Christmas, and I wanted to be back here to make sure that I could contribute to the debate today in this final reading of the Child Poverty Reduction Bill and subsequent legislation. I was going to start my contribution saying how wonderful it is that there is no politics in this bill, but unfortunately, just in the last contribution, I can't start with that now. But fair enough to the honourable member who just finished her contribution. Can I then start by acknowledging the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, Minister for Child Poverty Reduction and Prime Minister. And I want to acknowledge her because there is one thing that the Prime Minister and I share, and that is a passion for New Zealand's children and an absolute commitment to making what is currently New Zealand's reality for some of our children different. We're decades apart in age, but that doesn't mean, and so my past is a little bit further away than your past. The Prime Minister's past, but we share that commitment to New Zealand's children. And I also want to acknowledge the Alfred Ngāru, because he shares it also. And he has a job to do. As a member of the opposition, having sat there for 6 years, as a member of the opposition, his job is to make sure that this is not just about headlines. Thank you, Mr Smith, for your Christmas contribution. And it's not just about headlines, that it actually becomes a reality. So I want to acknowledge the Alfred Ngāru. It's always interesting to sit here and listen to him speak, because he comes from such a place of truth. And that combined has created a coalition of a parliament, actually, to make sure that this legislation goes through. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge the Honourable Alfred Ngāru and his recognition of the coalition agreement between New Zealand First and the National Party back in 1996, which led to the healthcare that he referred to, which was free doctor's visits and prescriptions for children under the age of 6. So it is amazing what New Zealand First can do when we finally get into a place where others work with us. But coming back to this piece of legislation, Madam Speaker, it is a pivotal moment. This is a pivotal moment. This is a moment where the New Zealand Parliament, this is not the first time in our nation's history that we have had poverty. Nor is this the first time in our nation's history that a government has come together to step in to do something about that poverty. But I think it's one of the few times that a parliament has said, we acknowledge and we recognise, as all of the representatives in this House, almost all of the representatives in this House, that something must be done. We cannot set aside a real focus on a particular area. The Honourable Louise Upston was absolutely right. Poverty is affected by so many parts of what is government decision-making. And that is why one of the pieces that falls out of this legislation that we're passing today is the Child and Youth Wellbeing Strategy. And we have had thousands of voices of children as part of the consultation around that Child and Youth Wellbeing Strategy. The Prime Minister held up some postcards that she had received directly from children to articulate their submission into what is the current piece of legislation we're talking about. And the Children's Commissioner, along with the units inside DPMC, Rangatamariki, other youth panels and so on, have made sure that the voice of children in this whole process has been clearly articulated. This is a serious topic, but it's also a topic of hope, Madam Speaker. And we're in the season of what should be hope, a hopeful season. For some of our families, it's always a challenging time. But one of the things, and this is why I want to articulate what the children have told us at this time, is that one of the major things they ask for, probably number one at the top of their list, if they could have one thing from us for their parents, for their family, for their whānau, it was time. It was to give back time to their families so they could give it to them, their children. I ask for all those families that are going to be under stress during this season. I ask for all of those that we have yet to provide the housing for, the income for, the education for, the employment for, all those things that this Parliament will continue to strive to deliver for you. I ask for those of you who are under stress this Christmas to remember that, if nothing else, that what tens of thousands of New Zealand children have said is the most important thing to them is time for you to spend with them. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it truly can be that simple. There is so many stresses that once we get this in place, this piece of legislation in place, and we continue the work, whether it was started by this coalition government or started under the previous, the fact we've come together to make a decision that we are going to move forward on it at this moment in the year is a powerful thing. So I'm not going to take up much more time, Madam Speaker, because I think we need to get this passed, and we need to collectively move on, and we need to remember and reach out to those at Christmas that we haven't been able to take away that stress and that time for yet, as a community, as a Parliament, just as New Zealanders. But I do want to finish by acknowledging all those in this House that have come together on this moment. The Honourable Alfred Naru, who has led the way for the opposition, for the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, who has led the way for the coalition government, to acknowledge you all and to say this is a good thing we did here today, people. Kia ora, thank you very much.
I call Maureen Pugh.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It is indeed a great privilege, even an honour, to stand in the third and final reading today of the Child Poverty Reduction Bill.